was talking with a fellow liberal friend about the aftermath of what I consider to be a pretty disastrous election result. I'm not going to talk about the results specifically, or why things went the way they did. I've got a lot of ideas as to why that is. I've heard everyone's ideas, and I pretty much agree with everybody. There's a lot of blame to go around. However, a lot of people throwing blame are also do a little bit of blame themselves. No one escapes in this one. And I'm not going to cover that today because I don't really have the ability to talk about that without quite a lot of anger welling up in me. And I don't want this to be the time or place for that. Steve Shives and I are supposed to have a hangout this coming Wednesday. Be sure that I'm going to have quite a lot to say. So if you enjoy my angry rants, tune into that because you'll see it. But in any case, we were talking about trying to move forward and where do we go from here as liberals. And one of the things she said, and she, like me, was a Bernie supporter during the uh, primaries, and she expressed this idea that there's going to be a war for the ideological heart of the left. And I thought about what she was saying, and I got her point, but and then certainly there needs to be a whole lot of soul searching on the left as to who we are and what we want to do and how we want to go about it. But it really bothered me. I thought about this phrasing of war, and it's it might seem trivial, but it's not. And it's actually why we're here, part of why we're here. The problem with looking at things at a war, it's adversarial. And we on the left, there's a lot of us. One of the reasons we have a problem getting together is that there's a lot of different factions, a lot of different viewpoints, and everyone wants to get their viewpoint heard. And fair enough, everybody should be heard, everyone should be listened to. But what we need is not a war. We don't need a civil war, is we need common ground. Because the sheer fact of the matter is, because there are so many diverse ideas, we're never going to accommodate everybody at all times. There's going to be some ideas that are competing. There's some ideas that are just going to need to take more precedence than others at various times. And, I'm thinking about what Paul said last week about idealism. You know, I agree with most of what Paul said, except that the way he said it, as if idealism and pragmatism were enemies of one another, and I don't think that's the case at all. To me, pragmatism and idealism are partners. You need the idealism to think of new ideas and to kind of have a vision and have a goal, a long-term goal, someplace you want to get to, even if it's not someplace you can never totally reach, but it's something to trust or strive for, and it's something to motivate you. But you have to have the pragmatism to learn and the wisdom to get that done and figure out what's the most effective way to get things done. Because you can't do everything the first day. Some things need time, some things need to be built, some things need more thought, or there needs to be some planning and strategy. Sometimes you're going to need to put a lot of things in place to get what you want. If you look at any of the things here on the left that have been accomplished, a lot of them have taken quite a long time, and I know that's frustrating, and people don't like to wait. And in the era of instant communications and all that, our patience for that is even less. And when you mention even the fact that we might have to wait even a couple minutes for a few things, sometimes people get angry and that they think that means you're throwing it away, and that's wrong. Just because we say we're not going to achieve the whole Rome wasn't built in a day idea, just because we're not going to achieve everything on the list the first day doesn't mean we're throwing those ideas out. And even if we say that some things aren't achievable in the short term or even in the moderate term, or may seem impossible right now, that doesn't mean they're going to be impossible forever. But the thing is that in order to make change, you have to govern. And in order to govern, you have to win. And the only way we're going to win is if we're together. So yes, we need to listen to all the ideas and allow everyone to contribute. But what people also need to learn in that process is that we have to prioritize, we have to husband our resources, and we have to stick together. Because if you look on the other side, that's basically what happened. That, Trump got almost as many votes as Romney, not quite, but Clinton lost a lot of votes. And you can come up with all sorts of reasons as to why that is, and whatever you come up with is probably right. But we have to go past that. And part of why we got where we are is that their most recent primary was a war. It was a battle, but it didn't need to be. That's the thing that pisses me off so much. It didn't need to be. And yes, you can throw recriminations all around from either end of the spectrum, and you're right, and they're all true. All of it's true. So you can think whoever candidate you supported, the recriminations you have about the other one, yeah, there's some truth to it. And the same is true going your way. And that's another problem is people didn't want to admit it. So we spent the whole primary season spitting acid and fire and venom at one another. So I really don't think, regardless of some people said, well, maybe if we had Bernie, we might have won. I'm not convinced because I think this primary was so fractious and destructive that we weren't going to stick together. And maybe we were doomed from the outset. And that's the bitch of it because now it looks like we may lose Supreme Court for a generation. And that would be a disaster of epic proportions. And not because we didn't have good people, because I don't care. I loved both candidates, and I was supported either, both, all, and any. If the left to put up a tuna fish sandwich, I would have voted for it because the ideals and the goals are more important than the person. We don't need cults of personality. We need results. And if you want to argue we haven't had results up till now, you're partly right. But again, part of that reason is that we don't stick together. We eat our own. But they don't. They don't. And if we don't get that through our heads, we will continue to lose. You know, one of my favorite lines of any media, any TV show, movie, radio, you name it, I forget the name of the show from HBO, but it's the Why America Isn't the Greatest Country Anymore. And when he says, if liberals are so fucking smart, why do they lose so goddamn always? Well, the reason why we lose so goddamn always is because we don't get our way. Instead of looking from a strategic perspective and trying to figure out how do we get what we want over time, we pick up our toys and go home. Because we treat pragmatism and idealism as enemies, and they're not. They are partners. And if we would get that through our fucking skulls, we could win. Because when you look at any poll over the last 40 years, the people, their ideals, what they would like us to do, they lean to the left. 70% in almost every poll for the last 40 years. Almost 50 now, most of my lifetime. They lean our way, but we don't win because we don't get together. So if you complain how the Democratic Party has moved to the right over the last 30 years, yeah, it has. And the reason why is because when they tack to the left, they lose. Now when they're tacking to the right, they lose. So basically we're stuck in a position where we lose. So forget wars. Let's find common ground. There's tons of common ground, and that's the hell of it. We should never be this fractious. It's okay to have heated debates and heated discussions and yell and scream at each other. But at the end of the day, we have to remember what side our bread is buttered on. Because they are not for our things. They are going to, not only if you thought Clinton wasn't going to do enough, yeah, maybe you're right. But now we're going to lose ground. And I always think of the words of General Patton, never pay twice for the same dirt. Well, right now we're going to have a lot of dirt to pay for. So something to think about. So whoever you were supported, you know what? Instead of being smug and arrogant and saying, "Well, I told you so," or you screaming at the other guy because he didn't do things the way your way, because again, this is not all one problem. This is all along the spectrum on the left. We're all guilty. If we don't find a way to figure out who we are and what we want to do, and whatever we can come into in common, let's advance that at least. Some things may go on the wayside for now, but that doesn't mean they're gone forever. So don't take it personally. Just figure out a way that we can talk together and we can build something. Because if we do that, they will never win. And we'll have eventually everything you want, or just about everything you want, we can get it. It may not take a day. It may not take a year. It might take 10, 20, 30 years for some of the things, but it'll get done. And advancing, making progress. We're supposed to be progressives, so let's continually make progress. Move the line, push the line all the time in there, and take ground, and don't give it up ever. And just to drive the point home, one thing about war, again, why I hate that metaphor, is that wars have winners and losers, casualties and consequences. And if you're feeling bitter about how things went in the primary and in the general election, if you want to have a war with somebody else, think about what happened recently. And if you were on the side that wasn't happy with the way things went and you were resentful of the other side, just imagine how it's going to be. Because if you're going to shove your way down somebody else's throat and not try to find common ground, then they're just going to feel the exact same way you do, and they're not going to support you either. Communication is at least a two-way street. So we need to get on the road, liberals. It's got a long road ahead. Even on this, it's hard not to get a little angry. So, anyway, something to think about. Again, I will be laying blame at many feet come Wednesday with Steve Shive, so I hope you'll come out and watch that. I think it'll be on his channel. I guess Paul's up tomorrow, and we got a long road ahead, liberals. Let's get started.